Marvellous. Marie, good morning everybody and welcome to the Vincent Community Board meeting for Tuesday the 29th of October. Apologies, we're all here, so that's a great start and we can get straight into the public forum. Nigel, it's so nice to have you back. Welcome.
There's enough. It's transcript, so to speak. Just to remind you, I'm Nigel Murray. I'm part of the Lower Mandarin Reserve Working Group. We're an altruistic group. It's responding to damage to our landscape and the desire to see a better example. Set a better example to use the reserve. So thank you for commencing the draft management plan for the reserve. Look forward to putting our input into that. We're surrounded by messages calling for action, and the sheet in front of you's got some of the links to where these comments come from. In 2019, the CODC declared a climate crisis, and when their sustainable strategy was announced, Councillor Calvert said, there is a climate crisis and all levels of government need to act, not just government, but everybody. And that business as usual isn't fast enough. We have to be doing more. And recently, Pierre Marassi for Extinction Rebellion Queenstown Lakes presented some information to the RRC that I think is relevant to the Lower Mandarin Reserve. He says, a recently published report from the World Wildlife Fund shows that globally wildlife populations have fallen 73% in recent years. You don't need to be a scientist to understand where this is going. This is what a dying planet looks like. The collapses across all species, from insects to mammals, and across all types of ecosystems, from forests to coral reefs. And New Zealand's not faring any better than the rest of the world. We have only 33% of our indigenous forest remains, 20% of our dunes remaining, and 10% of our wetlands. Our soils are drying and eroding. 82% of our native birds are at risk of extinction. 76% of our native freshwater fishes are threatened. And as we well know, many of our rivers are dying or unhealthy. This collapse is not some kind of unavoidable outcome. This collapse is the collective consequence of all the local decisions made, just like here in this room, that we take across the world, from individuals thinking that it's fine to use pesticides in their gardens to local and national governments who decide to allow polluting activities or not. We need a living planet to clean up our mess if we want the chance to reverse the climate crisis we have created. So just to bring you back to the reserve, we want to remind you that this project is to establish an island of native vegetation, to seed the transitioning from thriving conifer infested reserve to a biodiverse native planting area. Our project is for a highly visible part of the reserve to show that there is a community contribution to making the reserve a better place. We estimate the combined OSC grant and this, not this grant application, will stretch to between 500 to 1,000 plants, depending on what other support we can get from suppliers. We aim to use the summer for site preparation and the following autumn for actually planting. And we have been given a small extension and have now until mid-December to uplift the Eco Fund. And to do this, we're required to provide the OSC with a copy of the management agreement with the CODC for this project. We're sure we can deliver the plan with the oversight of the council staff and the necessary documentation that it's supported by the VCB. So we're asking you for your support in this project.
Very nice. Have you got any questions, Nigel? Roger.
Yeah, Nigel, as you know, I'm a keen supporter of what you're doing there. One part that just worries me slightly is that, yes, you're removing the conifers, and I'm not against that. In terms of carbon sequestration, they are probably the most efficient carbon sequestration plants in our environment, and you're replacing them with much slower growing native species. There's a problem in my mind of balancing those two things, going to the native plants in place of exotics, but going to a lower level of carbon sequestration. I wonder whether you can comment on that, please.
Well, my understanding is that old slow-growing trees don't actually sequester that much more at that stage, and we're proposing to replace them with many more numbers of trees that continually increase on that. I mean, these things are about numbers, aren't they? And if we're going to fix the climate crisis, we have to do much more radical action than chopping down a few pine trees or keeping for that matter. But and I'm not really that mathematically expert in this area. Other people know many more things about the details. But we're not proposing to take away that carbon off the site, except for the main logs that are useful for firewood. So all the rest of the carbon in the branches and the small stuff is proposing to be mulched and leave there, and therefore return to the soil.
Tracy.
Just in relation to some of the chemicals that you're going to be using, whether you can answer this or not, using associate and boredom, what are you trying to kill? Because if you're taking the big trees out, what are you trying to kill with those?
The project is split in some senses. The small area that we're proposing to plant in, they're proposing to take all the trees away.
Yeah.
But we put in the grant application, which we didn't get, we put in a suggestion that we got access to those chemicals, then we would be able to preliminary kill off some of the trees in other areas of the reserve where we could develop planting in the substory that would then be exposed by those trees fire.
Yeah. So essentially, so what I'm hearing is that you're going to be using, because these have got really specific uses, these chemicals. So
not the chemical.
Okay, no, that's right. Just obviously, they do work and they do have good purpose, but they've got to be used on the appropriate. So have you got someone who's going to manage that side?
We would play a role in conference control.
Okay,
they would support us and supply the chemical and also lend their tools and do that. And look, that part of the project is totally, dependent on the agreement we have with the CODC, because we're not going to, make it more dangerous or anything for the other reserve users. And that there were two areas that we really thought of in our initial formulation of this plan. One was the very steep banks, which are adjacent to the water itself, which we can't cut the trees down very safely, or when if the trees are dead, there's not really any walking paths in those areas, so they're not likely to be jeopardising people. And the other was specific trees in specific small areas of the reserve where we want to open up a canopy to gather plants in a sheltered and damp spot where there's most likely to planting success. And they were another strategy to try to develop a replanting process. And I personally don't even know which area that was, because all the other enthusiasts say, yeah, we should do it here, we should do it here. But understand the principle, then work with CODC to work out how we actually deliver that part of it, really. But the main area is just inside the gateway.
And just pick up on what Nigel's saying there, looking at the wider area through the reserve management plan process that we've just kicked off as well. So it'll sort of help answer a lot more of those questions too with the immunity and
Thank you very much. Have you got questions?
I was just going to say thanks for all the work you've done out there already and for your patience as we've gone through this process. So looking forward to getting it resolved.
Yes. Perfect. I was also going to acknowledge the persistence and perseverance. So appreciate it. I'm aware of it.
Yes.
Easy process. Thank you.
My question to you is if you decide to go ahead with an MOU later, whatever it's called later on today, Is that stuff already formulated? Is that something we have to work through all of the details and what's in the timescale might be?
It'll be essentially the resolution if the board passes it, puts it back into, gives the power to the chief executive, so back to the staff, and then we'll work together on that. But essentially, I think over the next couple of weeks we'll have something that we can share with you, kind of thing. And because we are working towards your original timeline, which was that end of November period. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your day there. Chris and Sally, welcome.
That is my way thing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I like the sitting down option as well. So I think I'll see you around, but I'm Deborah Scalbraith and I'm co-president of the Molyneux Tube Incorporated. Sally Millage, who's on the group as well. Hopefully you've all received the document and may have skim read it. I realise it was 60 pages. If you're like me, you probably skim read it. However, so our vision is to create a busy, vibrant and sustainable multi-purpose surface here in Alexandria for sports, local schools and the wider community. And what we propose is to run a collaboration with the school, Darstone High School, which we're delighted that we've got an MOU with now, and with you, the council. So it will be a three-way partnership. The multi-purpose surface will be developed on the whole high school grounds, potentially on the tennis courts, which are currently out of use for them. And the reason that we've got to, look at building a new surfaces for a range of issues. One is the safety of our current facilities. Two is travel for like all the eastern regions. They're having to travel a long way to get up to Cromwell at the moment. And three is the weather conditions, which are really challenging in winter around here, as you know. So I'm about to present our feasibility study that has been done by Impact Consulting. Our board have been working hard on this project, as you know, for over the last 10 years, and we're grateful to get some traction moving forward and an amazing show of support from our community. So some of the support we've had so far, as we were preparing for the feasibility study, we've approached our local businesses. So we've got Fulton Hogan on board, Benchmark, some local contractors, Richard Stevens, and these people are all have shown in writing to us, that they're able to either do work for free or at a really discounted cost because they want to help back us in their project, which is awesome. The feasibility study basically broke down three options. One, which will be our preferred one, is a full-size turf. And obviously it's a lot of money, it's about $2.5 million. So I acknowledge that that is the greatest investment, but we believe that it also will have the greatest benefit and the long-term economic opportunity for the entire community. The second option is the half-size turf, which brings the cost down to about $1.5 million. And my guess is you will look at that and think that that's less dollars and it sounds appealing, but ultimately both the full size and the half size turf will have the same long-term cost to you as council. And then they did put in a third option of a 5x5 field, which would be a less preferred option. That's not even a competition that we run here. It would, however, be a very advanced option for New Zealand. I think they said there's only one facility in Auckland that is playing that, but that's not really why I'm here today to talk about. So I guess in terms of dollars, we just want your support. We want to be included in the long-term plan. But if you're looking at dollar value that we might be looking at from you, it would be the initial investment to get the build off the ground could be anywhere from 250 to 500,000 from your perspective. That's something that we could look at staging. So maybe building the turf first and then providing something like the lights secondary, which, lights cost up to 200,000. And then long-term maintenance costs from council would be asking for around about $15,000 per year. But the benefit of having that three-way partnership would be less, well, one, you're not going to depreciate it because it's on the school land, and here's my second one. The upkeep, because that will be on us, it's, yeah, and the school to cover those costs. So I guess, yeah, we just want to know that we have your support long term, and that you know, get to a point where we can sit down at the table and discuss what that might look like in the future.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Has anybody got questions for Sally and Chris?
Oh, my side note was this project that we're in with to develop the Roxburgh pool. I guess that is probably something that we're looking to do in a similar way with you guys, because it seems like it was a success.
So I just have one question. It might be for your hat, Sally, and that's sport for young people in schools and things. It seems to become more and more challenging finding appropriate turfs, and there's ice on the netball courts and the fields are waterlogged and this, that. Is it changing, or is it just people's expectations for the quality of the surface are changing, or is it because our weather is changing, or just seems to be coming a lot at the moment?
It's probably a bit of everything, I think. I think people are wanting better bang for your buck, but also people are changing, I think, with what they want in the way of sport and recreation, and that they're wanting these different facilities that they can play modified games on quite a lot too. I think we've got to look at from sport, and this is probably Kohahe and me at school as well, that the traditional sports that students actually don't necessarily want to play them. They don't want to give up their weekends and things like that. So they're looking at these different styles of sport, whether it be six-a-side hockey, whether it be a touch, whether it be renegade hockey, whether it be futsal and things like that. So they're looking at all these different sports now that they can just play the 6 weeks of the year, they're short and sweet, and there isn't the commitment of the practices and things like that. So I think as a community, we've got to look at how can we provide something. They need something. And I think we're going away from the expensive $200 a season rugby, hockey and netball to more modified, cheaper social games. So the likes of this sort of surface, if we're looking to put futsal markings on it, for example, and all these and different markings, I from a school point of view, I don't want it to look like a lit up thing with all these multicoloured courts and everything on it, but a facility that a variety of different sports can be played. There's idea markings are there that they can use, they can modify. You don't need to have a specific, for six-a-side hockey, for example, it doesn't need to be regulation, it just needs to be something there. For the likes of, for us, they're special needs students and things like that, they're in an area, it's safe, it's fenced in, early childhood. So sport is definitely changing. And yeah, these sort of multi-purpose facilities, I think they can cater for a lot of different groups.
So, Tracy.
Just in relation to the proposed placement of it at school, if it is used by the community during the day while school's in session, is that going to impact school? Noise, parking, I don't know, unforeseen circumstances. Well, we're looking at putting it up. The community, I would think, would come in from the Molyneux Stadium end, so they wouldn't actually be coming through the school. There's a gate there. So in terms of that, it would just be making sure that the school is aware that for the Z classes or for lunchtime when the kids go over there, that they wouldn't actually be able to use it. It's used for a different group. But in terms of the parking and accessing the facility, with where it's proposed there is ideal because they don't have to walk through the school, or they can come from the other end, and safety point of view. And like ideally, I would look at it and I'd go, you'd have a little bit of extra asphalt and you'd have a 3v3 basketball courts using the fence, because there's nowhere in Alexandria that the kids can play basketball outside or anything like that. So you want to be encouraging the community to use it as much as you can, but they don't need to go through the school.
James.
A question that's probably more related to maybe detail down the track. I think your report you talked about for your lighting, about a setback from pollution, but there's not a lot of neighbourhood risk. The bigger risk I see is we're looking for a dark sky promotion across the whole Vincent community. Do you have that factored anywhere into your lighting people that you're talking to? About filling upwards. We've made some moves here. The lights on the bridge have been focused down. There's lights and buildings have been focused.
So I wasn't aware of that, but I'm sure what the discussion is there.
Massive.
I think with the new LED lights that they're using, there's not very much light spill. There will obviously be some, but I think now with technology, they can definitely, it wouldn't be like what was in Cromwell where the whole town was all lit up. Things have definitely changed there. I think also you'd be looking at, I can't see it being used past 8 o'clock at night sort of as well. So granted in the winter, they will need to be on, but I don't think the lights would be used.
And there's resource management rules around that. So keep in touch with Andy with the night government sky people. They've got a light engineer, as part of that team as well, and she's quite across this stuff.
From council.
I can email them.
I'll send you his contact.
The aspect I forgot to point out was, one of the things that, Impact Consulting put, one of their suggestions in making this viable from your perspective could be to reallocate the money that you've set aside to resurface, Pioneer Park with and allocate that to the new turf and then perhaps repurpose Pioneer Park into something else. They have suggested the splash thing, which don't know, doesn't make sense, but
Exercise.
yeah, no. But you know, like maybe it could be a really cool playground.
Some of the assumptions they've made about the current use of that facility that are wrong.
Yeah,
It is a well-utilised facility. You spend any time with Tim Booth and the woman who played tennis there make a hell of a racket straight after tennis. So
6 people across 2 courses this morning at 9 o'clock.
where does Sport Otago sit on this? Because there was work done a number of years ago saying we've considered and that's been impacted onto funders too, that we need to rationalise the amount of facilities in the wider district. And my recollection could be wrong, but it basically said Cromwell should be the focus of war hockey. That's the Sport Otago report. And that has been reflected on in some of the funding decisions that Central Lakes Trust and others have made.
I think, I think Cromwell should be the focus of hockey because it's got the water tube. So what we're not looking to do is actually compete with Cromwell because we're not looking to put a water tube in. So that is the ultimate hockey surface and the home with hockey. So what we're looking to do is actually put a multi-purpose surface in that we can play hockey on, but it actually can be used for a variety of different things. Sport Otago came in originally and said they were very much a hub and spoke approach. So we'd go for a half tube here, half hockey tube here. So what we're saying is actually we don't want to go for a half hockey tube, we want to go for a full-size multi-purpose surface. I know James Nation that's down at Sport Otago now, when he first started, he said, oh, you go full. But that wasn't what Sport Otago originally had said. So I think we've moved away from just hockey. And we're actually saying we want a full-size community that we can play hockey on. And because majority of the hockey players actually, well, over half come from this Eastern District. So we're saving a lot of travel there. So if you're going to build something, you might as well make it that size. But let's build something that other sports can use as well.
And have you got a Sport Otago endorsement for this? Are they supporting it?
We haven't yet. We've got a Hockey New Zealand one. I haven't asked for one.
Yeah. I just possibly getting them on site may help with your funders.
Yep.
Especially when you look at, the growth of hockey, but also the growth of futsal and all of those other things that nobody had heard of when that first Sport Otago feasibility study was completed.
Are there any others, I think you mentioned, you can put a mat in for cricket, so it doesn't get knocked around, you can put about basketball. Are there any other sort of infrastructure stuff to support other sports that are consequence, I guess?
Well, you could do, like the rugby, you could do the, wee ripper rugby tournaments or the wee jiggers when they're going rugby, they could actually play on that surface rather than in the mud and everything. Then this marching, marching people could come in and they use it and things like that. It could use whoever you decide. I know that there's, as far as physique goes, we could use it, you've got your cornhole, you've got all these different sports that you actually can use that surface, because it says in the report, I can't remember the number of frosty days that we have in the winter. If it means that they can go out there, we can have 3 to 4 classes, the Z classes going at the same time.
So, thank you very much for coming in, and the feasibility study looks really professional. That's a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, confirmation of minutes from our previous meeting, all the way back on 9th of September. If somebody's happy to move that those, thank you, Di. Accurate reflection, seconded, thank you, Tracy. For those in favour, against, carried. Declarations of interest on page 16. Please remember to check it regularly and update it via Sarah if you need to. Now move to page 20 and the Lower Mannaboon Reserve Working Group. Welcome, Gordy.
Forum. So yes, so this is the follow on from last month's meeting, which you did authorise suggestions for a reserve management plan. I think it's about between 3 and 8.
It's awesome.
2 or 3 weeks ago. That aside, so we're looking at suggesting that council enter into a management agreement with the Lower Mannaboon Reserve Working Group, so they can access their funding from the RRC Eco Fund. It's due over the year. They need to have it done by some answering questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Just a follow on from my Kim question. Is there going to be, I guess I've got in my head, I'll back it up, I've got in my head when there was a contractor who last year, a couple of years ago, on the Cromwell Gorge had a whoopsie.
Major whoopsie.
Yeah, and I'm really conscious that we've got an incredibly motivated group in our community that is doing incredible work. But I would hate for a contractor to essentially spoil that. So I'm just really conscious of chemical application if it's not done, or I guess and I don't know whether we oversee that or if we are able to trust that. I don't know what if you've got any plan on that. But I'd hate for the group to be stymied because of a chemical issue.
Yeah, so generally we would have people doing regular meet councils, health and safety site, safe, sort of chemical.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm trying to think of the name, those sort of
They'll
things
have
are
it
in
there.
place, so yeah, so they need to do all of those rules, Same as any other contractor or group doing work, they need the requirements of council's health and safety plans. So let's say we'd like to see that, and you can like to see it themselves.
These are risks, you need to put resource.
Yeah, that, all that too, but I mean, obviously, I'm just, I would hate for a project to be. So I just want to make sure that, and just as I said, I had that thing in my head where it ended up costing because the chemical application was incorrect.
You didn't recognise the plant that was sprayed.
Didn't recognise them.
Yeah, and some of those plants might take, I mean, obviously our group is probably going to be a little more.
And
Better.
I think that was my drill and fill chemical application as opposed to spraying, and that was what Nigel was talking about with the ones that can't be cut because of the angle or
Yeah,
the
there's all
safety.
spots going, so,
Mm.
yeah. But anyway, just making sure that we.
No, we can do that.
just supporting the group, I guess, is from the council to make sure that those guys are actually, if they're a part of a species that they're doing, that they're spraying. And someone who's got the expertise to,
I've just got a photo.
because I tell you, I wouldn't be able to pick some of the natives over.
Great.
So, yeah.
Any further questions or comments? In that case, the recommendation is that we receive the report and accept the level of significance and support that council enter into a management agreement with Lower Mannaburn Reserve Working Group to enable the group to undertake the removal of wild and conifers, revegetation, planting and construction of a fence within the Mannaburn Dam Recreation Reserve as outlined in Appendix 1, which has the circle around the area that we're talking about, and authorises the Chief Executive to do all that is necessary to give effect to the resolution. Somebody would like to move that? Thank you, Roger and Jaden. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Nigel.
Gonna miss having you at meetings.
You're welcome back.
Anytime.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, team. Molyneux Stadium, page 32, Sarah and Tara, this is the report that we had left on the table last time, but there might be some updates, so over to you guys.
Yes, so this report was to consider the status of the stadium and the staged investment approach for maintenance and compliance work to bring the building up to standard. So I'll take the report as read, possibly twice. So the only changes that have been made to the report is we've just updated the next steps really. So a quantity surveyor's estimate has been obtained, which provides an estimate of cost for everything that needs done to the building. So that's earthquake strengthening, asbestos removal, accessibility and fire safety upgrades, and other maintenance items which have been identified in the building condition assessment. And table 1 on page 34 basically sets out all those costs. So it summarises the estimated cost for the next 30 years for all those, for all the maintenance and capital works, which are being identified in the condition assessment, the DSA, asbestos, fire safety and accessibility reports. And all those costs are based on the quantity surveyors' cost estimates. And they're laid out per financial year or collection of years. And they've been split across financial years as it was recommended in the condition assessment. So as you can see, in the first 10 years, there's approximately $5.6 million to be spent on the building. And the majority of that cost is to do with earthquake strengthening and the various upgrades that come along with that. And then overall, for the next 30 years, it's around $12 million. And as a comparison, if you were to consider a new build for similar size building, we're looking at a very conservative figure of 15 million. And there'd also be additional costs to add to that for demolition and possibly feasibility studies of where the new building would go. So those costs are proposed to be included in the draft long-term plan. And it'll allow the building to basically remain for the next 30 years and extend beyond that as well. Could well be up to 50 years if we carry on with those maintenance items. So just go back to the recommendations. So we're asking the board to approve that staged investment approach and approve the $1.2 million for maintenance and refurbishment work and around $4.4 million for the earthquake strengthening, and they ought to be funded from the Vincent Community Board Reserves.
Thank you. Questions? Tracy.
Sorry,
Yes, you go.
there's nearly $1 million for asbestos removal, 4 and something million, and I know it's the flavour of the mass, excuse the pun. It seems extraordinary now, doesn't it?
No. No, not at all. Asbestos can be quite tricky. And,
I know all
yeah, so, I've worked with a building before, it cost me $1.7 million just to demolish the building. There's the amount of friable asbestos they've found. And it just got worse and worse and worse every time you open something else up. So when we do these assessments, we do it in the stage that we're not expecting to spend that amount of money, but in reality, we probably will. When they take off non-friable asbestos, they take it off in situ and they take it off in packs. It gets bagged, tipped in asbestos removal. Sometimes it becomes compromised. And when that does happen, it goes from non-friable to friable, and it basically turns into like a talcum powder. Heavy cleanups, negative air pressures to remove that type of stuff. And this goes on and on, gets quite costly. So I think we've done a really good conservative approach. We've given maybe a high dollar value and hoping that most of it will be, catered for quite quickly. But what I wouldn't want to be doing is coming back to you guys and going, we need a little bit more money now, Let's put it up front and see where it takes us.
Probably one of the largest elements in that $1 million is asbestos, which is around the floor, and that's going to be opened up when you do earthquake strengthening, and it's not a easy exercise to crawl around and underneath the floor, so that's probably why the cost is up there so high.
And add to that, the regulation behind asbestos removal, health and
Oh,
safety.
yeah,
is just
I know,
incredible.
a little drama that goes
Yeah.
out across cities, a massive sum for a total project to there.
That's
And
what-
I think there's loads of coming off and going off to the tip, right? But I mean, it's a dangerous product.
Yeah.
And considering people abuse the facility, we want it to be nice and safe. Potentially managed.
Yes. I need to just ask a point of clarification here, because I've got, sorry, just to be a pain, I've got to get something correct first. There's another paper that comes up tomorrow to council that has, and I could be wrong here, that actually talks about a similar thing, but is almost in conflict. And I'm wondering if it's appropriate to bring that up now, or it's in relation to, it's on page 156 of the papers for tomorrow. Talks about indoor facility needs assessment. Obviously the logical is more new stadium, and I'm just concerned that if we're going to be spending $12 million as opposed to 15, I know that we're talking big numbers here, but a purpose-built facility as opposed to a Band-Aid, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the costs, full stop. Once again, because when I think about, things for our community, but I'm really concerned about putting a Band-Aid over something when a different assessment from council is going to potentially identify something that we need to do. So help me if I'm mixed up here, please.
If I can aid in this, so what the team are asking here for is recommendation from you guys to council to spend the money, and obviously with distributisation that would go up to council and work out the wash with everything else that's going on, including that paper that you'll be discussing tomorrow. So it's probably an okay conversation to have with the board around, hey, where does the prioritisation sit with that paper? And I guess then you could bring that to council tomorrow when you're having that conversation, because what the team here are asking is your support to continue along the stage approach, and then to provide a recommendation to council to spend the money. Council still have to approve that expenditure as part of the long-term plan.
So in the report in front of us, the funding options with digitalisation, are those models that we're seeing in this report accurate?
That where it says funded from Vincent Community Board reserves. That's question 2, does that change?
Yep.
Does it change?
Well, so most of your funding reserves comes out of endowment plan, and Vincent can choose to spend that money on whatever they like. So it's going to have to go through a model for the digitalisation. So this is only going to come effect 1 July next year, the digitalisation, and then that'll have to be decided how the money is going to be split, where it's going to come from to spend on the building. So it's still going to be draft into LTP, and then finance will model it and then bring it back to you guys when you come next year.
Yeah.
That makes this process this decision quite difficult to make then, because we're not too sure what the impact is going to be on our ratepayers.
So effectively, if we don't make this decision, then we delay this for another year, because we'll wait for digitalisation to come into effect. If you do make this decision, nothing's set in concrete, and finance will model it up, and then they'll come to as a separate report to the council to see how it's going to actually be funded.
So it will go into the long-term plan, and I guess it would be potentially the same as we did for the Omako hub, where there was the option to fund from reserves or to rate or to Guy.
Yes,
You're quite familiar with this building.
I am. Quality building. It's the Apology Stadium to me is my thoughts are that if we spend the money, I don't think it'll be a band-aid fix, it'll be the earthquake strengthening and then asbestos and done, we'll have a quality building.
You have a building that'll be life cycle to 50 years out, and then with good maintenance will be life cycle even higher than.
I don't think the Band-Aid is not a description.
It said 25 to 30 years in the report, so
So that's it, as it's sitting now.
that's as it's sitting now.
Yeah.
Check from. Did you have anything to add, John?
Sorry, I will retract Band-Aid comment.
I don't know if I have a conflict of interest. Being the manager of the rugby club that is attached to the building, so, but I'm all for putting a huge big Band-Aid on it.
Okay.
So if I can just add quickly, when we assess a building, we look at the bone structure of a building. We say, has the building got bones? And would it be good to invest a small amount of money to get into the area building? So from an asset management point of view, it's about sweating the asset class and getting the most out of it. And this building definitely has the bone structure that it requires. If it didn't, I'd be recommending demolishing and starting over, but absolutely not. This is a good asset.
I think we used to fix stuff and maintain it before we became this generation of just throw it away and get a new one. And actually, if it's worth fixing and maintaining, yes, it'd be lovely to have a brand new stadium that's built for the exact size and things that we want, but you don't know what problems we're going to put on the next generation. We thought when this was built that asbestos was a really great idea and everybody used it for everything.
Yeah.
What are we building with now that in 30 years' time people will go, what are they thinking? At least we can make it safe and make it usable. And it'll be nice, is my understanding. It's not going to be $12 million over the 10 years to look botchy together. It'll be clean and new and
so
looking good.
all new cladding will come into, so we'll tackle this with priorities up front. So health and safety starts first, and then you start going into the less urgent works. There's good maintenance in the building.
And it's $12 million over 30 years. So
Yes,
it's 5 million for next year. There's a big difference between spending 12 million over 30 years and $15 million in 1 year to build a new building.
Yeah, so
And I'll say $15 million is quite a conservative number.
Yeah.
you get all what we know, yeah.
Any final questions or comments? In that case, recognising that there's work to come in terms of exactly where the money comes from and how the funding is put together. Recommendation A, B, C, D and E. Is somebody happy to move those? Sarah's got them up on the board, so I won't measure all that. Di, seconded. Thank you, Martin.
Yeah.
All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. It's been another big work in progress for a number of months, years.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gareth and Tara. Right. Page 116 is our meeting schedule, so you can make sure that your personal life does not conflict in any way, shape or form with the community board for all of 2025. Wayne.
Morning, everyone. Yep, so in front of you got proposed 2025 calendar. I don't think there's anything particularly to mention. There's one, I suppose, one meeting in June, which will be on a Tuesday for the questions for the hearings panel. Oh, and in September also for the same reason. But other than that, it's, I guess, a pretty standard looking calendar. Yeah, any questions?
So thank you for not having any of my kids' birthdays this next year.
I think that purposes to avoid. Yeah.
Thank you. In that case, I'm happy to move it if somebody's happy to second that. Thank you, Roger. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, Mike.
Can we have a three printed copies, please?
Yes, I will arrange that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone?
Yep.
Right. We now move to page and 19, not quite 120. For a notice of motion received from Deputy Chair Jaden Cron, which is Simmers. Is it yours? And Vasquez. No one?
It was Peter's.
I think if you're happy,
Okay.
Jaden.
Jaden,
Okay.
it's yours.
I can be the officer on this one, while Peter's out.
I'll make notes.
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. So first we need to remove move recommendation.
Happy to second that.
Over
All
that.
those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, so A, recommended that the notice of motion be received. Has been.
So I'm just going to skip over recommendation B for now and look at B. So it was the recommends to council that the 400,000 in year 3 of the LTP and the 4,130,300 of years 4 to 10 of the Clyde Museum redevelopment be paused and removed in the 2025 2034 LTP. I hope I've got that correct for the dates of that. So that one is really about removing something that has already been paused for a number of years and something that the Clyde Museum itself is not asking for. And when we're all having these conversations around all this, whether it's a community board table or council table about saving money and not spending money on projects that aren't necessary, looking at the LTP, that is definitely one that can easily be removed and save quite a substantial amount of money within this ward. C is recommends to council that community board's ability to fund museums not be limited by a resolution of council. So originally this one wasn't in my original planning, but came up after reading Dylan's report on the museums policy. And the reason behind it is it was only a month ago that we agreed with digitisation, and community grants weren't a part of that. And there's something about it that just doesn't feel right. So a month later, be suddenly limiting community boards' abilities on community grants. I'm not saying in the long term that's not a conversation to be had, but when community boards, except for this one, have not had the opportunity to be a part of that conversation, it just doesn't seem right, given the conversations we've been having in the last few months on digitisation and delegations. And then back to A. So originally, when I thought of this motion, having a district-wide museum and having it based in Alexandra seemed like a really good idea. It all came down to the cost and the fact that it was based here in Alex. It's right in the middle of the district, so it made way more sense than having one in Cromwell. Following conversations with Paula from ADMI, other board members and members of the community have come to realise that it's not actually the best idea, and it's not one supported by the museum sector. I'm still a bit unsure on how we move forward with that one, and was really open to ideas on amending recommendation B.
To the chair, I would move that B be rescinded. That's the correct word. And that a slight change to C. Redevelopment be paused, redevelopment to be stopped. And subsequently, any reference to funding be removed from the long-term plan.
Still,
Sorry, just for clarification on B, before it's removed or it's completely, can we get clarification from VCB if there is a desire for there to be a museum in the Vincent Ward, I suppose, because that's kind of what you're saying in that resolution, sure.
Yeah, so there is a desire to maintain
Yes.
the existing museum facilities within the ward. That includes the Clyde and Museum and the ADMI.
So that might be only change that resolution rather than remove it.
Noting what you're saying there is a note, noting pretty much what you've just summed up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that would be something along the lines of, recommends to council that the Vincent Community Board supports the retention of the Clyde and Central Stories Museum functions.
Yeah.
Just sorry for clarity, but we pulled out some of the district museums, brain.
Yes.
Central Stories.
Yeah. ADMI.
Just, I mean, Armand, on your recommended change to use the word stop, was it actually started? Redevelopment,
It's in the long-term plan.
that's all, so if we remove it, we don't need to stop or start or pause, because it's in the long-term plan, so it's just removed.
I think we would need to give an indication.
Some a request for quotes was sent out to potential builders of the new facility in Clyde.
Okay.
And that was done about 3 years ago now, you might remember.
Yes.
Martha. And at that stage, after the quotes had come in, we then put a stop on it. So in a sense, it had already started.
That's fine, but if we start to stop it, that's not.
Yeah. I just
Council that Chronicles year through the offering, we stuff and mode.
Yeah.
Retention.
retention. Yes, yeah, just.
That's
The query I have is regarding what funding has been allocated to the LTP for potential for removal of existing facilities associated with the Clyde Museum. I'm talking about the Briarwood factory and things like that. Now, is that 400 the property owner here? I'm just saying, is that 400K set aside for the removal of some of the existing facilities? Because there was a budget line for that, and I just can't recall if that's it. And are we coming in, you know, if that resolution sits there, we don't have any money to actually achieve the outcome with removing those facilities which are not wanted in Clyde?
The Clyde, you might be able to answer this more detailed on, but the Clyde redevelopment is a line in itself in the LTP that I've seen, a specific redevelopment line outside of what you're talking about. So
as long as you guys are that
I think.
that we're not putting a rope around our necks.
No, I think based on the conversations, you may require a new resolution around putting money aside to.
Once property do that work, yes.
And that was what I just wanted to check was, given that we are now in year 4 of that LTP, is year 3 accurate?
Most likely.
Okay, maybe we could just check. And I just wonder, at the end of that, where you've got ADMI, if it will need to say museum functions, end of museum functions, yeah.
And Central Stories.
Yeah.
The retention Clyde by students and ADMI at Central Stories. Because that's essentially.
Yeah, perfect, yeah, just to.
Are we including the goods shed in Bly Street? In addition to Bly Street? We want to retain that for storage?
I think that's probably sufficient for.
again, with reference back to through the work that Private needs to do, especially around the goods shed.
Yeah.
We're not jeopardising the retention of the goods shed by that resolution.
What you might want to do is add an additional recommendation that council investigates the retention of the chief. Because I think the GCI C essentially is would it incorporate the good shit in there.
Cool. So if we go and UC recommends to council that retention of the goods shed. It's just called the goods shed.
Yeah.
Oh, no, retention of the goods shed is investigated, or
I think just that
is investigated. Okay.
And funded accordingly.
All but not.
Well, I guess we want to have it investigated, because if you come back and say it needs $1 million worth of work, we may not wish to support that funding.
That's right.
Recommends the council that 400,000 in year 3. I just put a wee question mark or something.
I should just wonder if you put something more in there about recommending the council that the redevelopment project might be stopped.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And funding
Yeah.
removed.
And funding removed from the long-term plan.
Yeah.
The,
We get ourselves. Yeah.
if we just go there, the redevelopment flood museum.
Well, it's that said, that took a while to find this.
Sorry.
Museum be stopped and funding removed from the long-term plan.
Yeah.
And funding removed.
Yeah.
And then recommends to council that community board's ability to fund museums not be limited by resolution of council. And that's what Jaden was saying around whether council was considering perhaps a $10,000, for example, cap on the ability of community boards to fund museums within their boards.
I think there was some discussion around the ADMI table as to where the 10,000 came from, Dylan.
It simply came from, I guess, looking at the two that are likely, there's a possibility, and the conversations we've had actually with councillors and workshops, that if there were to be community funded museums, there likely be TBN and money over, they both come under that $10,000 cap. So it was, I guess, a pragmatic approach to what's already happening at the moment.
Yeah.
It's looking good. Before I move, I was just going to say, digitalisation was a good move, but moving forward, we please make sure this sort of stuff goes to community boards so they can at least discuss it before they're going to council, because the fact that, as I said before, we're 1 month in, and the fact that this has happened, this doesn't feel okay. And then I'm happy to move B, C, D, and E.
I've got mine with one.
Thank you. I'm happy to second.
Just.
Any, no, it's just sorting out just technology. Any further discussion on that, those resolutions? Tony. Yep. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Just in time for tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah. Great burn.
And your feedback's noted, Jake, too. Share them.
Thank you. Right, we now move to Chair's report. There's been quite a lot on since our last meeting. For me, anyway, I attended an Institute of Directors, Company Directors course in Queenstown not long after our last meeting, which was really interesting and hopefully has made me a better governor of the table. It's unique getting some perspectives from a wide variety of people, both within the public sector and also out of the private sector as well, and experiencing kind of how they approach different problems and challenges and conversations around these tables. So it was certainly worth attending. We've had a number of long-term plan workshops, which is always a good opportunity to drive the outcomes and the priorities that Vincent community want to see coming out of their ratepayer dollars. Very exciting for me is this, twice I think since our last meeting, I've been along to volunteer at the Riding for Disabled exercising their horses. It was quite challenging getting up and down the stairs in my house for several days afterwards, but I think that's because I'm out of practice. But it's neat to see there's been a huge amount of support for the work that they do out there. And I know we moved them a couple of years ago now out to the racecourse, and it is an excellent facility. They've got their own space. The toilets have been improved, which is great news. And it's a nice safe place for people to be riding both during the actual RDA sessions and then also exercising the horses, and also having that additional support from other people around. Everybody knows that sometimes horses like to do silly things in paddocks, so it's helpful to have other people keeping an eye on them as well. And then last week I attended it because I organised it, which was a challenge as not an event organiser. Maybe should have outsourced it to Martin. But the Zone 5 and 6 conference in Dunedin on Thursday and Friday last week, and we had some wonderful guest speakers, which was really cool. Some highlights for me were Dan Neely, who is the currently the acting group manager for the Wellington Region Emergency Management Group, and he came and talked through some of the aspects of community driving resilience in terms of civil defence emergencies. Slide that I think myself and maybe Tracy as well took away. Everyone is an emergency manager, and when it comes to actually dealing with something on the ground, lots of people won't have done the appropriate courses to be handing out toilet paper or, organising tractors to rescue people. And I think there's a real onus on us as community board members within our communities that people will look to us to know what is going on and where to source additional support. So hopefully we'll be able to organise a bit of a session on that, even just around things like, everybody used to know that you'd tune the radio to a certain AM station and that's how you'd find out what the message was, but we don't have a radio like that in our house, and I'm guessing many of you won't either. So even a session on where do people go to find the assistance if the internet is not working. Who's going to be organising the radios? So there's, I think, a space for us to have more information in that sort of sector, and maybe that's something that we could organise for a future session of the community board, is just a bit of a informal rundown from the emergency management officers here. Just, here's your spot, here's what will be there, here's how you're going to organise your, support your communities. For the first however many days it might be, recognising that in some situations, which might just consist of Peter here for now, and he doesn't even wear that hat anymore, maybe several days away or even weeks away, and it'll be up to us and our communities to be resilient in the face of whatever is coming. The other thing that was really interesting, had some great stuff on rural health. And also on the Dunedin study, we had Professor Moana Theodore come and speak on that, which was awesome. She is really interesting. The work that they're doing continues to be world leading, and actually quite fascinating in terms of the work that we do around community wellbeing, ties into what they're doing, and they're now really focusing on ageing and ageing well, which I don't know, maybe we need to put in a seniors playground at one of our parks. And the last thing was Nick Smith from Nelson, who is in charge of the electoral reform working group, talking about voting and the challenges that we face in democracy within both local government and central government and worldwide. And he had some really interesting comments. And one of the things that I guess for us as we approach an election year is that more than 30% of people actually wanted to be able to access more information on the candidates. 150 words in a little booklet is maybe not the best way of putting out what you're about and what you stand for to our community. So that's maybe something for us to think of individually, both for ourselves and for anybody that we might be encouraging to stand council with the next elections. That's the end of my report. Thanks, Sarah. Jen.
Gonna move and.
Oh, sorry, yes, are you happy to,
I'll second
that's
it.
what I was going for. Yes, if you're happy to second it. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Some,
Members' reports. Jen.
what's that? Feels like a lifetime since the last meeting. Right, so since the last meeting, I spoke on behalf of the Vincent Community Board to Council in support of distritisation. I attended the Alexandra Council Services AGM and have joined its new committee as a former chair to support them over the next wee while following the Incorporated Societies changes. Just having a chair, secretary and treasurer was no longer enough, so it's really good to be back in that space again for a wee while. Every fortnight I've been attending the Riverside Park project meetings, sometimes a little bit late, but try to get there when I can. Progress continues, an issue no, can't quite see out that window. The trees have been taken down, concrete's been laid for the new ramped entryway, and so far the comments from the community seem to be quite positive about it. I also circulate some photos around from the last Aurora were taken down near the site. So I also met with the Clyde Museum, Andy from the Clyde Museum, along with Tamer on a very cold Saturday morning. And it was really good to have a look around and see what they've got going there. It's an incredible space in that first room. As Tamer said, it looks like something you'd see at a Otago Museum. So the work they're doing there, good on them. And I obviously have engaged a lot with members of the community boards, councillors, CODC staff and members of the museum sector around the future of museums. And it has been really eye-opening to see just how much work is happening, not just in this ward, across the whole district. And finally, I attended a young elected members Zoom catch-up. It's always a really nice way just to catch up with everybody across the country and see all the great work everyone's doing.
Okay, probably the highlight of my last month was the launch of the CM100 Museums project, which was noticeable for, I guess, the passion of all the community museums, the staff and what they presented, well supported by staff, opened by our chair, and I guess the outstanding thing was the support from the public. It was pretty much oversold. So it's fantastic, and I think very timely given that conversation with our museums. Likewise, I had a look through the Clyde Museum with Andy. They're pretty spectacular. And Mike Dunstan's thrown a bit of money to help them with stuff, and we'll commit to probably that as well. Had a presentation from the Coast Guard looking at your emergency management stuff, and they haven't got much profile given we're not on the coast. They're well resourced, amazing, passionate, and probably a lot more pragmatic. We're looking at it with the Bike Ambassadors program, looking at it as a much more pragmatic go-to for the emergencies on Dunstan Trail than the helicopter ringing 0800 and wherever the hell they are. So that we don't know where we are. So that was pretty enlightening and a great community resource.
Thanks, Tony.
Oh, sorry, I meant
sorry.
farewell last week.
Yeah, so long-term plan workshops, Central Category Health Incorporated meeting, a Oakcow Domain Board meeting, which was, there's a lot of stuff happening out here, and there's a really passionate group of people that are really quite excited about things happening out here. Watch this space. There is a walking track happening that is going to do a big loop, and it's going to incorporate the wetland area as well and along the rail trail. So it's going to be exceptional for our community, and it will be hopefully accessible to the majority of people who want to go out there. I was also lucky enough to go to the Zone 5 and 6 conference, and just to follow on what Tamer mentioned, Mine Theodore talked about how council actually would be involved, as she said, in relation to that, and and VCB, and it's very much in relation to spatial planning and how it impacts people's lives, that spatial planning of the town. And so it was actually quite pertinent to what we do. Wairua Land Care Governance Group meetings, I attended a couple of those. And I attended the Central Stories opening of the Blossom Festival and Art Exhibition. And I am completely and utterly blown away by the skill and passion of the artists in this community. It is just outstanding. And I am going to finish on how lucky I was to have an incredibly hard job of being the Blossom Festival Princess and Prince Judge. And the quality of all of the princesses and prince was outstanding, and it is a real testament to our entire community, the school, and these young people themselves, because it was a highlight. Obviously attending Blossom Festival as well. Thank you, Martin and co. But yeah, it was a exceptional time to be introduced to that side of the show. So thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Done.
I've not done a great deal since Blossom Festival. Basically because I crashed and burned rather badly, and it only just coming right. It does tend to knock me for six. But the success of the event, it's too early to give you a financial statement. We're still working on that, but to use the Spates barometer, 2023 we sold 231 dozen cans of beer. This year we sold 261 dozen. So and police reports and everything else has been 100% favourable. You know, there's been no issues, and I'm very proud of the result. We had a stunning day, and a Queen and a King. The response from we had the Kapahaka primary schools combined Kapahaka group, and then they did their thing, and then two Wahine Māori came up in response. Somebody came up to me and said, 5 years ago, that sort of thing would never have happened. You know, it was just like all the things we had endeavoured to do as far as inclusivity is concerned, and highlighting the diversity in this community came together on that weekend and came together extremely well. So I get a bit tired and emotional about it because there's been a lot of effort put into making that happen. That's the only challenge I've got. What the hell do I do next year? It's the system. Yeah. Yes, so you know, hopefully some of my health issues are slightly, you know, in the past I'm coming back up to speed again, but I haven't been that well. But you know, I'm getting better.
We're pleased to have you back at the table. It's been a challenging month. Dave.
Yep, super busy times for us out at where I work and live half the time. But I attended meetings of the Elders Rugby Football Club and the Elders Golf Club. Attended several meetings of the Central Otago Charity Golf Classic, which is now in its 52nd year, longest serving tournament in New Zealand. Attracts 250 men over 3 days, and it starts this Friday, if you didn't know. Also organised and hosted tournaments for Business South in the last month, and Brandhouse, and also Dunstan High School's local fundraising golf day, working with Sally that was here this morning. They all attracted over 100 players and were all very successful. Also organised and hosted the Otago Peanut Finals here in Alexandria. Once again, over 100 players, most of them visitors. And just with September, October, November, just to give you an idea, the visitors we're seeing through this year is up again on last year. So we're getting bombed by the North Island in Australia. Unfortunately, they come and play golf and go back to Queensland. But they'll still be when it helps us immensely. So, and just keep in touch with Valence Cottage. Obviously, we've got some huge issues there and we'll just wait and see where we end up, I guess.
Thanks, Dan.
Right, we will list of meetings, attended the 2 meetings of the Alexandra District Museum Board. Attended the AGM of the Alexandra District Museum Board, which is quite a separate meeting. Attended 2 meetings with Central Otago District Arts Trust. Attended 2 meetings of Keep Alexandra Clyde Beautiful. Attended the AGM of the Haiata Trust. Attended a meeting of the Creative Writers Circle. Attended the AGM of the Johndale Park Charitable Trust. Also attended a board meeting of that same trust. Met with the QE2 National Trust, that came down from Wellington, to discuss control of spread of wilding conifers from Johndale Park, and that's an issue that the board may in future wish to address. The funding for the Johndale Park Trust is approximately 0, whereas the outgoings are substantial, and it's expected that it will run dry in perhaps the next 4 or 5 years. So sometime before then, I think the board, it would be good if VCB addresses the issue of where to. Took part in the Lower Manawatu Working Group Planting Day. You've heard from Nigel earlier, and this particular planting day was in the wetland area where we're deep in mud, so we needed substantial gumboots. Met with interested parties to discuss the role of CADC to play in Contact Energy's compliance with its resource. Resource consents, which is with the ORC for use of the water in the dam. Attended the launch of the 100 Objects exhibition at Citrus Stories. Already mentioned that, and greatly the range of and energy from the museums right throughout our district. Attended the farewell for Bernie Lepper from Central Otago Reef. She's been the front person at Central Otago Reef for so long. It's a really, she's got more or less to retirement age, but to have an important organisation like REAP in our district, and the way it's supported by the community and the number of people who came along for that farewell. And lastly, enjoyed the Blossom Festival, and it was an outstanding success and a great to see the response from the community, and very full park. Nothing, not too much standing space left. And that's my report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Roger. Happy to move that we receive those verbal updates, and Tony's happy to second that. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, notable by its absence is the Mayor's report, as we do not have a Mayor currently. Today, Tim is hopefully taking a cake for his first day at Taumata Arawai, the water regulator, as he begins his new job in the big smoke. And I would just like to acknowledge this board, which is where he started out a number of years ago before he went on to become the Mayor, and the efforts and the enthusiasm and the humour that he has injected to this table over the past 2 years with us as the team. And he certainly is missed. And we will see where we land tomorrow at the council meeting as to who will be filling that spot going forward. Status reports, page 124, but I think it's not quite 124, is it? 123. 122. Does anybody have any questions or comments on status reports?
Yeah, I've got one just with regards to the road stopping in Swindon Street. It says meant to close and then it's open again. Is there a reason why it says meant to close and then it's?
What page are you on, Tracy?
Page 125. We left that report on the table, so it's not closed, isn't it?
Is that one about Strode Road?
No, that's
Swindon.
Swindon.
Swindon Street, yeah.
Because that's still open as far as I understood.
Table.
Yeah.
That may be a time.
I think it's
It might
just
be
closed
the-
because it's closed for us because it's now sitting at council's table.
You'd still want an outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Thank you to remember, Steve. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I did think it was great to see that work going ahead on the Arnott Street boundaries. So please pass on our thanks. It's been a number of years in that status report. So no, excellent work.
Noted.
The only other one which has been going now for 4 years, which is well, just 4 years, is the Alexandra Cemetery boundary side of things.
That's what you just noted.
That's what I'm saying.
Is that what you just, oh,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
But I appreciate it.
Street boundary. Yeah.
Noted again. Thank you.
Only takes like 5 pages in that report.
That's all right. Oh, someone happy that we received those status reports? Thank you, Jayden. Seconded, thank you, Roger. All those in favour? Again, carried. And that brings us to the end of our formal agenda and the date of the next meeting, which is Tuesday, the 3rd of December. Thank you for putting it on the lunch.
And a reminder, we've got a delegations workshop on the 7th.
Yes, we do. Yep, we will pause for 5 minutes whilst ends that one is, and then we'll get into the